David Pagnotta. Oh, it's always David Pagnotta, isn't it? Okay, maybe it's not always him. It's a bunch of guys, usually, in the NHL rumor mill that give us the scoops and the big bad wolves of topics to dive into here on this show. Let's go over to the latest from yesterday. David Pagnotta's thefourthperiod.com, the start of Stanley Cup Final means start of silly season. And silly season indeed, because you might have seen yesterday, hard pivot, but one of the conversations that we had on yesterday's morning show was about the Buffalo Sabres and how a bunch of guys, potentially a quarter of the whole team, they were upset with the direction that the Sabres were going down. And we could see names like Owen Power, Alex Tuch, and others enter the trade market over the next few days. It was a possibility here. Now, we are diving into silly season because when it comes to that Sabres team, well, this is what Pagnotta writes about. The Sabres, who brought in Jarmo Kekalainen as a senior advisor, will be an intriguing team to watch in the weeks ahead. With multiple players uneased with the team's lack of advancement, there is an opportunity for Kekalainen and Kevin Adams to be active. It's time the organization takes the next steps in its progression. We have already reported Bowen Byram is in play again in Buffalo. Ahead of the trade deadline, names like Power, Peterka, and Tuch were also tossed around as the vultures circled their prey. Is there more of a willingness to make bold moves now? I'm curious to see if the Sabres circle back on Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. This is a lot to take in, isn't it? The article then talks about Pettersson, how he's 26 and his no movement clause kicks in on July 1st, and how the Vancouver Canucks are probably going to go out there and still entertain trade calls. It doesn't sound like the price tag has changed much, if at all, so a team will have to pay up to pry him out of BC. Do the Sabres take another swing? They surely won't be the lone team to try. The article then talks about Demko and Besser, and it's kind of interesting because the way that Pagnotta writes these articles, it's almost like a full-on, unfiltered train of thought. He just talks about a team, then links a player to that team, and then starts talking about the next team, and then goes down the list and talks about some other teams. Oh, Marner, Tavares, Maple Leafs, speaking of Vegas, the Golden Knights, stuff like that. It's really interesting. But when you read it, you dive into it, you think about the idea of Pettersson being a Sabre, or Pettersson being targeted by the Sabres. I'm just kind of, maybe a little bit sad for Elias Pettersson. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm sad in general. You know, it's a rainy day here in Vancouver. The mood's not great, especially when you start thinking about star Vancouver Canucks players being targeted by terrible hockey teams. If Elias Pettersson were to go to the Buffalo Sabres, firstly, he would get away from a lot of the pressure here. I don't think the Sabres have the same pressure cooker environment like the Vancouver Canucks do, even though I know the diehards are potentially, maybe even more so, vehemently against the ownership on that team than Canucks fans are when it comes to Aquilini. I do think that both of these fan bases share the same ownership regret or ownership disdain, but Buffalo's might just be a little bit stronger here. With that in mind, though, I still think that even though that aspect of the fan sentiment is depicted the way it is, I don't think Pettersson would have the same pressure in Buffalo compared to Vancouver, especially since he wouldn't be like the only top-tier forward superstar on that team. He would be with Tage Thompson. He would be maybe with a JJ Peterka. Heck, you got Rasmus Dahlin on the back end. That guy is the absolute number one. So Pettersson would be going over to Buffalo not as a absolute most important player caliber guy on that team. And I think he can thrive a lot more if he's not being tossed over all that pressure. Although, of course, it's difficult to say that because he'll still be making the dollar amount that he's making. It's just, the Buffalo Sabres, man, do they have the assets to get it done with Vancouver? Are the Vancouver Canucks going to make a trade for Pettersson thinking that they'll be a better team afterwards? They're already short on centers. They already have some vulnerability with Filipino. They already are going to lose Pius Suter. They can't go into the season with an idea that says that Teddy Bluger is their top-line center, or a top-6 center, even. There needs to be at least a top center coming back to Vancouver. And I saw some people talking about, Pettersson for Byram, 1-for-1. Like, no, that's not going to work. The Vancouver Canucks don't need more defensemen, nor do they need guys particularly on the left side of the defense. With Petey, Mancini, Hughes, Hronik, and Myers, their decor is pretty much set here. They don't need more defensemen. That's not even including Tom Willander. So for Elias Pettersson, if any trade is going to get done, the Vancouver Canucks might have to swing a multi-tiered layer deal here. They trade Pettersson either for a center in Buffalo. I'm not saying Tage Thompson goes, but let's just say for the sake of making things interesting, it's Tage Thompson. Then okay, I can get behind that idea. Two guys who have underperformed to some capacity. Of course, though, I think Pettersson might have been more underperforming in that respect. But if the Sabres aren't willing to send over a Tage Thompson-like asset, then it might have to be a trade for some draft picks and some prospects, and then Vancouver flips those assets to another team to get the center that they want. It becomes a lot more complicated than that, and it's like, hey, why not just trade Pettersson for the center that you want in the first place? But if it's kind of tiered up, you think about different assets, you get different values from each of these teams, then it becomes a little easier to digest that. I think if you get Pettersson off, you trade him for, let's say, a JJ Peterka and, I don't know, a first-round pick or something, and another prospect, and then you flip that first-round pick and another prospect for the center, then all of a sudden you get JJ Peterka and the center that you're looking for. Maybe you won't be able to get a center at the caliber of Elias Pettersson. You're not really going to get any 100-point guys for just a prospect and a draft pick, but JJ Peterka, help on the wing, the Brock Besser replacement right there. That is interesting. There are a number of avenues the Canucks can do to mix and match their way in a trade with the Buffalo Sabres. I just don't really know if it's all too feasible here. There has to be some sort of a bigger picture, longer-term plan over the next few weeks here if Patrick Allvin is going to decide to trade away Elias Pettersson and not get a top-tier center in some sort of a trade return package. Either that or they have to be super confident that they can sign a guy like a Sam Bennett or whatever in the offseason, and who knows if that guy is even capable of being a top-line number one center over the next however many years his contract is going to be. So with all that in mind, it's just kind of a jumbled mess of a word salad here in this video. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of Pettersson getting traded to Buffalo? What are your thoughts on David Pagnotta writing about how this could be possible here? And what are your thoughts on just the overall update? Pettersson, Demko, Besser, this article has a whole bunch, so I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to read that yourself. But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. PD to Buffalo, yay or nay? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.